This was the vision for HS2 just over a decade ago. A sleek, high-speed railway that would connect London to Birmingham in 49 minutes, slash journey times to Manchester and Leeds, and finally drag Britain's Victorian-era rail network into the 21st century. And this is what it looks like today. Half-dug tunnels, billions already spent, the northern leg scrapped entirely, and a final bill that could hit $130 billion with no train in sight until the late 2030s at the earliest. The question is simple. How does the most expensive infrastructure project in British history turn into what Parliament's own Public Accounts Committee called a casebook example of how not to run a major project? Today we'll look at what HS2 was supposed to be, where the money went, and what, if anything, is left to salvage. High Speed 2 was formally proposed in 2009 under the Labour government. The logic seemed sound. Britain's West Coast Main Line, the spine connecting London, Birmingham, Manchester and Glasgow, was running at near capacity. Rather than patch an aging network, the plan was to build something new from scratch. A dedicated high-speed line, running at up to 360 kilometers per hour, freeing up existing tracks for freight and regional services. Phase 1 would link London Euston to Birmingham. Phase 2 would branch north, one arm to Manchester, another to Leeds, creating a Y-shaped network covering the length of England. The initial cost estimate in 2010 was £33 billion. The government called it transformational. Critics called it a vanity project. Both were partly right. To understand why Britain felt it needed this, you have to understand just how outdated its rail network is. Much of the infrastructure still in use today was built in the Victorian era, the 1800s. The tracks, the gradients, the tunnel dimensions, all designed for steam engines, not modern trains. France opened its first high-speed line in 1981. Japan's bullet train network dates back to 1964. Britain, by comparison, had been running fast trains on slow tracks for decades, squeezing every last drop of capacity out of a network never designed for it. When the project formally received parliamentary approval in 2017, the budget had already climbed to £56 billion. By 2020, it was revised again to between 72 and 98 billion. And by May 2026, the expected total cost of the scaled-back HS2 program had risen to between 88 and 103 billion pounds in current prices. That's nearly triple the original estimate. In dollar terms, we're comfortably past $130 billion. So, where did the money go? Three things drove the collapse. First, the design was overspecified from the start. The project was dominated by a desire to build the best, a culture of gold plating that pushed costs far beyond what was necessary. The original 360 km/h specification pushed engineering requirements beyond what was necessary, increasing complexity and cost throughout the program. The project has now been scaled back to 320 km/h, in line with most modern high-speed rail systems, but not before years of planning and procurement were based on the higher spec. Second, governance was a disaster. HS2 Limited, the company set up to deliver the project, was structured in a way that left no one clearly in charge. Government representation on the board was inadequate, the executive leadership acted with a false sense of independence, and many major contracts transferred too much risk to taxpayers and provided weak incentives for cost control. Spend climbed, and no one with real authority was watching closely enough. Third, politics kept moving the goalposts. The project was pushed forward before the design was mature enough, with key decisions driven by schedule rather than cost control, as politicians sought to keep up momentum. Every time a new government came in, the scope shifted. Phase 2 was quietly shrunk. Then in October 2023, the northern leg to Manchester and Leeds was cancelled altogether by then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Nothing captures the project's dysfunction quite like the Bat Tunnel. A 1-kilometre protective structure, estimated to cost around £100 million, built to shield a species of bat from the noise and disruption of construction. The Bat Tunnel became a national symbol of HS2's excesses. Not because protecting wildlife is wrong, it isn't, but because no one in a functioning project structure would have approved that trade-off without serious challenge. When Sunak cancelled Phase 2 in 2023, he framed it as a responsible decision. The money, he said, would be redirected to hundreds of smaller transport improvements across the north of England. Critics immediately pointed out those improvements were largely repackaged existing commitments. The cancellation itself came with a brutal price tag. Cancelling the remaining work is estimated to cost between £33 and £58 billion, compared with the £47 to £62 billion left to spend to actually complete it. In other words, stopping the project now might cost almost as much as finishing it. That's how deep into the project Britain is. The Transport Secretary, upon reviewing the project in 2025, called the situation an appalling mess and accepted all recommendations from an independent review. The new CEO, Mark Wilde, the man who rescued London's Crossrail project, was brought in to reset the programme entirely. As of 2026, roughly 2/3 of the civil engineering on Phase 1 is complete. More than 38 miles of tunnels have now been excavated across the route, and Britain's longest railway bridge, the Colne Valley Viaduct, has been finished. There is real infrastructure in the ground, billions of pounds of it. But the first train won't run until somewhere between 2036 and 2039 at the earliest. And that's just from Old Oak Common in West London to Birmingham, not from Euston. Full services into London. Euston are not projected to begin until between 2040 and 2043. That's a project announced in 2009, potentially not fully operational for 34 years. Full cancellation is not considered a realistic option because of the enormous amount of work already completed and the sheer cost of remediation. So, Britain finds itself in the worst possible position. Too far in to stop, too over budget to feel good about continuing. HS2 isn't just a British problem, it's a warning about how modern democracies handle megaprojects. The combination of political short-termism, optimistic cost forecasts, weak project governance, and a refusal to make hard decisions early is a pattern seen in major infrastructure failures across the world. What made HS2 different was scale. At more than $130 billion and counting, the mistakes compounded in ways that smaller projects simply can't. Every year of delay, every redesign, every renegotiated contract added billions more. And because no single government wanted to be the one to cancel it, the project kept rolling forward even as the red flags multiplied. The irony is that Britain desperately needs rail capacity. The West Coast Main Line is still overcrowded. Trains between London and Manchester regularly run at full capacity during peak hours. Journey times haven't meaningfully improved in decades. The north-south divide in infrastructure investment is still real. London has Crossrail, the Elizabeth Line, Thameslink. The north has promises. The case for better rail connections hasn't gone away. What's gone is the public trust and the money to deliver it cleanly. And that's perhaps the most damaging legacy of all. The next time a government stands up and proposes a major infrastructure project, the first question won't be whether it's needed. It'll be whether anyone actually believes they can build it. The project is now being reset, a word that appears in nearly every official statement. Costs are being renegotiated with contractors. The maximum speed has been reduced. Automatic train operation has been abandoned. Platform screen doors at stations are being dropped. Everything that can be simplified is being simplified. Think of it less as a visionary high-speed railway and more as a pragmatic infrastructure fix. Stripped back, value-engineered, and delivered on a timeline that would have seemed unthinkable when the project was first announced. The 4-year funding settlement secured in 2025 gives the project some stability, and construction milestones are being hit again. But the ambition that once defined HS2 is largely gone. But the northern cities that were promised transformational connectivity, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, are left with a different kind of legacy. Billions spent, a hole in the ground, and a question that no one in Westminster has cleanly answered. Was any of this worth it? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel.